You probably thought Disney villains just got defeated, and that was it. Maybe they fell off a cliff or got locked up somewhere safe. But the truth is, Disney has created some of the most disturbing villain deaths in animation history, and they've been hiding them in plain sight for decades. Today we're ranking 15 Disney villain defeats, from the mildest embarrassments to the most bone-chilling endings that somehow made it past the censors. By the end of this video, you'll never look at your childhood Disney movies the same way again. Number 15. Captain Hook from Peter Pan. The Crocodile Chase. Captain Hook's defeat is basically a cartoon chase scene that never really ends. After his final battle with Peter Pan, Hook falls into the water where the crocodile that's been hunting him throughout the movie finally gets another chance. But instead of actually catching Hook, the crocodile just chases him away across the ocean, while Hook screams for help. It's more embarrassing than terrifying. Hook doesn't die. He doesn't get seriously injured, he just gets humiliated. The crocodile's ticking clock gives Hook enough warning to stay just out of reach, turning his defeat into an endless pursuit across the seas of Neverland. For a Disney villain, getting chased away by your worst fear while your crew watches is pretty much the mildest way to lose. The scene was designed for laughs, not scares. Children watching this aren't worried about Hook's safety, they're giggling at his panic. This is Disney villain defeat at its most family-friendly. Number 14. Jafar from Aladdin. Trapped in the lamp. Jafar's first defeat is actually pretty clever when you think about it. Aladdin tricks him into wishing to become an all-powerful genie, but Jafar forgets that genies come with one major downside. They're bound to a lamp and must serve whoever controls it. The moment Jafar transforms into a genie, he's immediately sucked into his own lamp while screaming in shock. Genie then flicks the lamp back to the Cave of Wonders, where 10,000 years trapped in the sand ought to chill him out. Jafar doesn't die. He doesn't suffer any physical harm, but he's trapped in a cosmic prison for eternity. What makes this relatively mild is that Jafar brought it entirely on himself through his own greed and short-sightedness. He had unlimited cosmic power for about 30 seconds before realizing the catch. The lamp becomes his cage, but it's a cage of his own making. Of course, Jafar did return in the sequel where his lamp was eventually destroyed, but that's a much more horrifying death that involves being electrocuted and torn from existence. For now, we're just looking at the lamp trap, which is more ironic than disturbing. Number 13. Gaston from Beauty and the Beast. The Fatal Fall. Gaston's death happens so quickly that many viewers miss just how brutal it actually is. During his fight with Beast on the castle roof, Gaston initially seems to have the upper hand. He stabs Beast in the back with a hunting knife during what should have been a moment of mercy. But as Gaston gloats over his victory, he loses his footing on the slippery castle roof and falls backward into what appears to be an impossibly deep ravine. The fall seems to go on forever, and when we see Gaston's perspective, we realize this isn't just a drop from the castle walls. It's a plunge into an abyss that wasn't there in any previous shots of the castle. What makes this disturbing is the look of pure terror on Gaston's face as he realizes what's happening. He has several seconds to understand that he's falling to his death, and there's nothing he can do about it. The animators made sure you could see the fear in his eyes before he disappears into the darkness below. The fall is completely fatal. There's no suggestion that Gaston survived. No comedic bounce at the bottom. Just a man plummeting to his death because of his own arrogance and violent obsession with Belle. Number 12. The Evil Queen from Snow White. Lightning and Butters. The Evil Queen's death in Snow White is the original Disney villain defeat, and it set the tone for how dark these endings could get. After transforming into an old woman to poison Snow White, the Queen finds herself trapped on a rocky outcrop, with the 7 dwarfs approaching from below. Her plan is simple and brutal. She'll use a large boulder to crush all 7 dwarfs at once. She positions herself above them and starts pushing the massive rock toward the edge, laughing maniacally at the thought of squashing her pursuers. But then lightning strikes. The bolt hits right next to the Queen's feet, fracturing the rocky ledge she's standing on. The outcrop crumbles beneath her weight, sending both the Queen and the boulder plummeting down the cliff face. She falls screaming into the misty abyss below. The final shot shows vultures circling ominously overhead, making it clear that the Queen is not only dead but about to become carrion. For Disney's first feature film, this was a surprisingly violent way to end the villain's story. The Queen doesn't just fall to her death, she gets crushed by the very boulder she intended to use as a weapon. Number 11. Shan Yu from Mulan. Fireworks explosion. Shan Yu meets his end during the climactic battle at the Imperial Palace in a way that's both spectacular and disturbing. After Mulan defeats most of his army with an avalanche, Shan Yu pursues her to the palace roof for their final confrontation. Mulan's plan involves pinning Shan Yu in place long enough for Mushu to light a massive firework aimed directly at the Hun leader. The rocket firework strikes Shan Yu in the chest and carries him high into the air before detonating in a brilliant explosion against the palace tower. What makes this death particularly brutal is that Shan Yu is conscious and struggling throughout his flight into the sky. He's not killed instantly by the initial impact. Instead, he's carried hundreds of feet into the air while impaled on a burning rocket, fully aware of what's about to happen to him. The explosion that follows completely vaporizes Shan Yu's body. There's nothing left of him afterward, just colorful lights scattered across the night sky. For a Disney movie, having your main villain literally blown to pieces by fireworks is pretty extreme, even if the visual presentation makes it look more like a celebration than an execution. Number 10. Bill Sikes from Oliver and Company, Train Collision. Bill Sikes has one of the most realistic and sudden villain deaths in Disney history. During the final chase scene, Sikes is pursuing Oliver and the gang through the New York subway system in his car, with his two attack dogs Roscoe and DeSoto helping him. The chase bursts out of the tunnels and onto the tracks of the Brooklyn Bridge, where an oncoming train approaches at full speed. Roscoe and DeSoto fall onto the electrified third rail and are killed instantly. But Sikes is too focused on capturing Jenny and Oliver to notice his dogs are dead or that a massive locomotive is bearing down on him. When Sikes finally turns around, the train is less than 50 feet away and closing fast. His car is directly in the train's path with no room to maneuver. The collision happens exactly as you'd expect in real life. The train smashes directly into Sikes's car at full speed, creating a massive explosion of metal and fire. The impact launches Sikes's car high into the air before the flaming wreckage crashes down into the East River. Unlike most Disney villain deaths, this one feels completely grounded in reality. No magic, no ironic twists, just physics and bad timing.
The train collision is brutal and final, making it clear that Sikes didn't survive the impact.
Number 9. Syndrome from The Incredibles. Jet engine accident. Syndrome's death happens so fast that children often miss it entirely, but when you slow it down and really look at what's happening, it becomes one of Pixar's most disturbing villain defeats. After his final plan fails, Syndrome attempts to escape in his jet while kidnapping baby Jack Jack, but Jack Jack manifests his superpowers for the first time, forcing Syndrome to release him. As Syndrome tries to fly away, his elaborate cape gets caught in the jet's engine intake. The cape is immediately sucked in, and Syndrome follows helplessly behind it. The jet engine pulls Syndrome directly into its spinning blades while the plane is still in flight. The engine makes a horrible grinding sound as it essentially shreds Syndrome's body. Then the entire aircraft explodes in midair. The explosion is so violent that debris rains down across the city below. What makes this death particularly dark is how avoidable it was. Syndrome dies because of his own vanity and his refusal to listen to Edna Mode's advice about capes. Edna had specifically warned that capes were dangerous for exactly this reason, showing footage of other heroes who died in similar accidents. The irony is that Syndrome spent years planning his revenge against superheroes, only to die in the most classic superhero fashion possible. He was killed by his own cape. Number 8. Hopper from Ob's Life, fed to baby Berts. Hopper's death in A Bug's Life is deeply disturbing when you really think about what's happening. After terrorizing the ant colony for the entire movie, Hopper finally corners Flick and Princess Ada in a bird's nest high above the ground. Hopper is so focused on killing Flick that he doesn't notice where Flick has led him until it's too late. They're in a nest full of hungry baby birds, and Hopper suddenly realizes he's surrounded. The baby birds are massive compared to him, with sharp beaks and aggressive temperaments. Thinking it's just another fake mechanical bird built by the ants, Hopper taunts it, until the real mother bird suddenly grabs him in her massive beak. You can hear him screaming in terror as she lowers him down into the nest, dropping him directly into the waiting mouths of her hungry chicks. The scene cuts away before showing the actual feeding, but the implication is crystal clear. Hopper is being torn apart and eaten alive. What makes this especially horrifying is that birds do eat insects alive in nature. This isn't a fantasy death, it's exactly what would happen to a grasshopper in a real bird's nest. The baby birds don't kill Hopper quickly and then eat him. They start eating him while he's still conscious and struggling. The feeding frenzy is violent and chaotic, with multiple birds fighting over pieces of their prey.
For a children's movie about talking insects, this is an unusually graphic way to show nature's food chain in action.
Number 7. Rourke from Atlantis: The Lost Empire. Crystalline transformation. Commander Rourke's death in Atlantis is both visually striking and genuinely disturbing. After betraying the expedition and attempting to steal the heart of Atlantis, Rourke gets into a final battle with Milo on his escaping aircraft. During the fight, Rourke is cut by a shard of the crystalline heart of Atlantis. The crystal's energy immediately begins spreading through his body, transforming his flesh into the same blue crystal material. Rourke can feel the transformation happening and tries desperately to stop it, But the crystallization spreads too quickly. Within seconds, Rourke's entire body has turned into living crystal. He's still conscious and able to move, but his body has become brittle and fragile. When the aircraft's propeller blades strike him, his crystallized body shatters like glass into thousands of glittering pieces. The transformation itself is painful to watch. You can see Rourke's horror as he realizes what's happening to his body. His skin cracks and turns blue as the crystal spreads from the cut on his arm up to his face and throughout his torso. He's essentially being turned into a living statue, fully aware of the process. The final shattering is complete and irreversible. There's no way to put Rourke back together after his crystallized body explodes into fragments. It's one of the few Disney villain deaths that shows the actual moment of destruction in graphic detail. Number 6. Ursula from The Little Mermaid. Ship impalement and electrocution. Ursula's death scene in The Little Mermaid is infamous for being one of the most brutal villain defeats Disney ever created. After transforming into a giant sea witch, Ursula seems unstoppable as she commands the ocean itself against Prince Eric and Ariel. Eric commandeers a shipwreck and steers it directly toward the giant Ursula. The bow of the ship, with its sharp wooden figurehead, strikes Ursula directly in the chest and runs her completely through. The impact is so violent that you can see the wooden bow emerging from Ursula's back. But the impalement is just the beginning. As Ursula writhes in agony with the ship's bow protruding from her body, her stolen magic goes completely haywire. She begins sparking and glowing from the inside out as her uncontrolled power overloads. The combination of the empalement and her own volatile magic finally kills the sea witch. She screams as she collapses, her massive body disintegrating into smoke and skeletal remains that sink into the ocean depths. What makes this death particularly disturbing is how much physical suffering Ursula endures before dying. She's stabbed completely through the torso, then her own stolen power violently destroys her from the inside out. It's a prolonged and agonizing death that seems unusually cruel,
even for a Disney villain. Number 5.
Scar from The Lion King. Eaten alive by hyena, Scar's death is horrifying because of what it implies rather than what it shows directly. After being defeated by Simba and thrown from Pride Rock, Scar survives the fall but finds himself surrounded by the hyenas he had betrayed. He had just blamed them for everything that went wrong, trying to use them as scapegoats. But Shenzi, Banzai, and Ed heard every word, and they are not interested in excuses. The screen fills with menacing shadows as the hyenas close in. The last shot shows silhouettes leaping on Scar simultaneously. What makes this disturbing is that hyenas eat their prey alive, starting while the victim is still conscious and struggling. Scar is torn apart by multiple sets of teeth and claws while fully aware. The surrounding fire adds an extra layer of horror. Trapped in a burning wasteland, the combination of being eaten alive and burned alive makes this one of Disney's most brutal villain deaths. Number 4. De Facilier from The Princess and the Frogo. Dragged to the Underworld. Dr. Facilier's death is terrifying because it shows a man being literally dragged to hell while begging for mercy. After his talisman is destroyed by Tiana, Facilier loses all protection from the voodoo spirits he had been manipulating. The spirits emerge from the shadows, reaching out with ghostly hands to claim their payment. Facilier tries desperately to negotiate, offering anything to avoid his fate, but the spirits are not interested in bargains. They want Facilier himself. Ghostly hands grab him from all directions, pulling him toward a portal to the underworld. You can hear him screaming and pleading as he is dragged backward into darkness. The spirits do not just kill him, they claim his soul for eternal torment. After he disappears, only his tombstone remains, featuring a terrifying carved face screaming in permanent agony.
This is one of the few Disney villain deaths that explicitly deals with damnation.
Number 3. Judge Frollo from The Hunchback of Notre Dame. Molten Metal and Divine Judgment. Judge Frollo's death is considered one of Disney's darkest defeats because of its combination of physical horror and religious symbolism. During the final confrontation at Notre Dame, Frollo corners Quasimodo and Esmeralda on the building's exterior. He positions himself on a stone gargoyle to strike Esmeralda with his sword. As he declares, "And he shall smite the wicked and plunge them into the fiery pit," the gargoyle begins to crack. The gargoyle's face comes to life, snarling before breaking away from the wall. Frollo plunges screaming into the lake of molten metal poured around the cathedral's base. The molten metal immediately incinerates his body on contact. The scene is designed to look like divine judgment, with Frollo cast into literal hellfire for his sins. His final words become prophetic as he becomes the wicked who is smitten and plunged into the pit.
Frollo dies, committing sacrilege on holy ground, suggesting divine intervention.
Number 2. Oogie Boogie from The Nightmare Before Christmas. Unraveling torture. Oogie Boogie's death is deeply disturbing because it shows him being literally torn apart while conscious and begging for his life. Jack Skellington accidentally pulls a thread, unraveling Oogie's burlap body. Oogie desperately tries to hold himself together, but the unraveling spreads too quickly, and terror fills his eyes as he disintegrates. The worst part is what's revealed inside. Instead of normal anatomy, Oogie is filled with thousands of live insects, snakes, and crawling creatures that spill out in a writhing mass. His consciousness is distributed throughout them, feeling every creature as they scatter. The scene ends with his bugs falling into a boiling cauldron, while the last survivor is casually squashed flat under Santa Claus's boot.
A grotesque form of poetic justice.
Number 1. Clayton from Tarzan. Axikidinal Hanjing. Clayton's death is widely considered Disney's most disturbing villain defeat for its realism and brutality. Entangled in vines while trying to kill Tarzan, Clayton hacks wildly in blind rage to free himself, not noticing one vine has slipped around his neck like a noose. Tarzan tries to warn him, but the hunter is too consumed with fury to listen. Cutting through the last vine, Clayton plummets. You can see his hands frantically trying to remove the vine, realizing too late what's about to happen. The vine goes taut with a sharp snap that breaks his neck instantly. Lightning flashes reveal his silhouette hanging motionless, swaying slightly. What makes it horrifying is how avoidable it was. Clayton hangs himself through his own reckless violence. Shown through shadow and suggestion, the implication is crystal clear, realistic, and final. There you have it. 15 Disney villain defeats ranked from mild embarrassment to absolutely horrifying. Disney includes these dark endings in children's movies by using clever camera work, symbolic imagery, and just enough suggestion to let your imagination fill in the worst parts.